Hey, hi, hello there, and welcome back to Formula Amateur, where today we are talking all about my predictions for what I think will appear in the 8th season of Drive to Survive. These are 30 predictions in no particular order, some likely more than others, some can be certainly more moulded into one idea, but here are just my thoughts, so let's get into it. Okay, so let's start off with the first one that I think would no doubt be there. So McLaren dominance, that definitely has to have its own episode at least, surely, because, you know, from the get-go in Australia, Norris won the race, Piastri spun out, and then Piastri won the next race, and then they just sort of kept swapping wins and nobody else looked comparable until Verstappen got into the mix and George Russell got in the mix. So it's really, it would really make no sense if they didn't have this, because it's been the cornerstone of 2025. It started about halfway through 2024. We'll see where we get to next year with the new regulations, but right now surely this has to be one of the biggest features, is the whole situation with McLaren just being unbeatable for a good portion of the year at least. My next prediction is about a Doohan to Colapinto replacement, aka Jack Doohan was meant to be the second driver for Alpine and everything was all set in place, and then they hired Colapinto as a reserve, and since they did that in early January, February time, there has just been this Colapinto threat that may have affected Doohan on an emotional level. That meant that, you know, there was always someone chasing that seat that he is currently occupying, and then all of a sudden his last race was in Miami, and then Colapinto hops in Imola and doesn't gain any points, at least up until the point of recording this, and it's just a weird battle of was it worth it, was it not. Now we've heard that Colapinto has signed a new contract and will have his first full season in F1 in 2026 because he has shown what he can do. Obviously part of it is to do with the car being basically useless at this point, so it is difficult to score points. Obviously Gasly having more experience in driving F1 cars than Colapinto and Doohan, he would know more about what to do to make this machine work, at least to some extent. So that second seat was quite a lot. There was quite a lot of drama surrounding it around the Miami Imola time. And then my next one is along the same vein, and that's the Lawson to Tsunoda replacement in Red Bull, where Lawson had two races as the Red Bull driver before he was let go of and put back into the Racing Bulls team, where he is to this day, and then Tsunoda stepped in, but both of them have had challenging times. Obviously, with Lawson only having two races in Red Bull, he didn't get the chance to really show his potential. It was just sort of getting the grips of this car that he never really got the chance to get his grips into. And then Tsunoda being put in and also struggling, but he did get some points every now and then, but it still is not looking great. And this whole situation of the Red Bull seat in general, which we'll go into later on, deserves its own sport surely. Then prediction number 4, Cadillac joined the grid, because up until very late in the last season to this season, we found out that they have been given the formal agreement to join the grid in 2026, and then the whole thing turned around as to like, okay, so who is going to lead that team, how will this look like with an 11th team on the grid, in terms of money share, where the prizing and things like that, and then who will actually be the drivers for their team. There are so many, rookies that you could put in. You could put experienced drivers in, and then the whole thing of like having another American brand another American company manufacturer on the grid, being sort of like a much better finance organization to Haas, but both of them being an American team of their own doing. It will be interesting to see how this dynamic pans out, but it will be about prepping for having an 11th team on the grid, which the teams sort of had a little bit of a dabble and a taste into it when they were filming the F1 movie, where there was a supposed 11th team in the Apex GP team, but they weren't actually racing anyone in reality. But it was still, there were 2 garage spaces taken up, and now they'll be taken up by Cadillac. So we'll see how that goes for them. And alongside the Cadillac news of them joining the grid, Bottas and Perez returned to the grid as the actual drivers for the team, as well as having an IndyCar driver moving from IndyCar into Formula 2, and also getting the reserve role for the Formula 1 team. Valtteri Bottas had been a reserve for this year in his beloved Mercedes, and Perez has been off the grid until we saw him in Mexico, where he's from. And it's just, it will be great to finally see them, but I suppose that there might be some behind the scenes of how their lives have revolved around them not being on the grid and then being announced as the drivers. It will be interesting, probably weaved into Cadillac joining the grid. It will be a really cool thing to see if it does make its way in, and I reckon there should be like at least a slight mention of it, because everyone needs to know who's driving for this new team that has never driven in Formula 1 before but has driven in other motorsport. Now this one is definitely going to get a mention, and that's the fact that Christian Horner was sacked from his role as a team principal, because this was sort of out of nowhere. Although we saw Red Bull struggling a lot this year, we did think that if he were to be sacked, it would have been more at the beginning of 2024 with the whole texting scandal and the scandal surrounding just harassment that he was found to be not guilty of. But the team was headed in a downward direction, and then after the Silverstone race between Silverstone and Belgium, he was let go of, and Laurent Mekies took his role in Red Bull. So it'll be definitely will get a mention, because when he was at risk of being fired back in 2023 and 2024, around this whole scandal that was going on with him and his employees, surely him no longer being on the grid and these supposed rumours of him joining other teams, trying to get himself back into a Formula 1 role, is bound to have some mention, because he was a significant figure in the seasons previous to these events. And then my next one is Ferrari struggles, because, well, what can we say about Ferrari other than they had won a sprint race in China, and then ever since then the best they've got was a second place in Monaco and Mexico. They haven't really shown what they can really be known for, because the car, they said that they changed like 95 to 99% of the car, and then it turns out that that was a bad idea, because what they had going for them in the car last year was a lot better than what they have this year. Obviously they couldn't just copy and paste the same car. They had to change a few things, but to dramatically change the entire car in the final season of right before a regulation change was a risky strategy that did not work out for them. And they have not won a full Grand Prix race this year, so it has been a Ferrari drought in that way, and it just it doesn't bode well for what to expect next year if they've already managed to sort of prototype this car only to have it changed into a different car, and that sort of being rushed into because they were so focused on making a car that will no longer suit the regulations next year, and then having to go into a completely new regulation set with a completely different setup. We can hope that they have a better year next year, but the fact that they haven't won a single race this year and they're still competing for second position in constructors is quite a confusing one, to say the least. And on the other hand, we can surely predict how the story of Sainz's journey from being a great driver in Ferrari to a driver who initially struggled in Williams after he was let go to make space for Hamilton. He didn't score many points at the beginning. He was crashing a lot, and then all of a sudden he gets 2 podiums for Williams, whereas Ferrari are struggling sometimes to even make it into the top 5. It's quite a big jump going from a car that is in a top team to a midfield team that was once a top team, who surprisingly have 9 titles to them, but have sort of been lost or for quite a lot of years, and then all of a sudden they have the best scoring season that they've had since I think it's over a decade now since they've had such a good scoring season. And I think the dynamic in that team is improving. I think Sainz was a great addition to the team, and he is, although he still ebbs and flows, he has managed to rejuvenate that team from a very long lull that they were in, especially with last year where their cars just kept crashing all the time. Whether that was driver error or a car error, I don't know, but they have gone leaps and bounds ever since Sainz has joined the team, and I think that is great. And then my 9th prediction is that they are bound to say something about the season that Verstappen had. 4-time world champion. You would hope that he would get a 5th, and although he's still in the running for it, there were times for a long time where we thought, oh, surely he's out of it now, and he was, and then he just brought himself back in to it. He brought himself into the running, closing a massive gap between P2 and P3 in the Drivers' Championship, but still having issues. Like, obviously he was crashed into in Austria, so he didn't get any points for that race, and him having a few squabbles here and there, and sometimes the car just not being in the right position, and also difficulties within the team dynamic while Horner was there, and then when Mekies came in it seemed to have sort of leveled out a bit, and that taking effect on his scores, and also Yuki's ability to be heard in the team is also good to see as well. So I suspect that this one will get a mention because he's battling for his 5th title, and sometimes he's on the up and sometimes he's on the down, and it's just difficult to predict who's actually going to win. Bookies are out for all sorts of different drivers, and obviously there's 3 technically, but really, well, there's 4, but really we're talking about the top 3 in this case. It's anyone's game to play for, and it's just a interesting history we've had this year of that Red Bull car not even suiting Max anymore quite a lot of the time. On to prediction number 10. I think that they might mention Sauber bouncing back. So 2024 was a horrendous season for the Swiss team because they have scored 4 points in the entire season, and those 4 points came from one person, that was Zhou Guanyu, who had scored those points in Qatar, and that was all that they were able to score because the car was undrivable and it was just slow. It didn't get anywhere. And then in 2025 they are all guns blazing, both drivers scoring points, Nico Hülkenberg currently in 9th position in the Drivers' Championship. You would never have thought that they would make such leaps and bounds from where they were last year. I don't know what they managed to put in that car that managed to boost them up. They're no longer the wheelie bin, that bright neon green wheelie bin that we saw last year, and they have transformed themselves into a team that has been able to get a podium, the first podium for one of its drivers, a driver who has been in the sport for 15 years. And it's and the dynamic in the team between the two drivers, although there was a big age gap between them, with Bortoleto being in his early 20s and Nico being in his late 30s, but still acting like best buddies / brothers. I think it's really sweet. So I think that Sauber should get a mention in that way, just how quickly they managed to turn things around, and they are no longer last in the constructors. On to number 11 now, and Jonathan Wheatley and his effect on Sauber itself. So Sauber for quite a few years didn't really have an actual leader ever since Fred Vasseur moved to Ferrari. They were sort of taking turns in who was actually going to lead that team, and then when Jonathan Wheatley stepped up, he really showed what he can bring into that team to turn it around, to make it more effective, to make it a point scoring team again, and to give it some hope, some zhuzh that we really wanted to see in that team, really give it some hope, really give it some energy. And I think that his experience from being in Red Bull for so many years and being able to put people in line there to make an effective team was transferable to Sauber, and I think that that's a great thing that was necessary for the success of the team and future successes when they become Audi, which we'll talk about in a moment. Now on to number 12. We're going back to Ferrari and just the general storyline of Hamilton struggling. I don't know how much we'll actually get from Hamilton himself, because he, as a veteran in the sport, and having a lot of control over his persona, his fame, and how much media he actually does. I don't know how much this would feature actually him talking and explaining his situation on how this year has gone, but he himself even said, I'm just here for the fun at this point, because this season has just not been what I was hoping for. And I think a lot of people feel the same, where his high was really the win of the sprint race in China, and then ever since then he's been all over the shop, and I think part of it is due to him getting used to the car, but also the fact that this car is so different to the Mercedes that he's been driving for so many years. A lot of new parts for him, but also a car that nobody really understands, not even the veteran that is Charles Leclerc, to the Ferrari team and the team itself. All the mechanics, when they decided that they're going to change up the entire car in the last year of this set of regulations, and now all of a sudden we are seeing the team, being sometimes fourth, sometimes third, sometimes second in the constructors, and not winning a full Grand Prix race. It's no surprise that Hamilton is struggling, because the team are struggling themselves, and it doesn't give much hope. They were so proud of themselves that they hired this driver who is of such caliber. He's a 7-time world champion. He's known as the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. He has won so many races. He has had so many successes. He has done so much for other people in terms of bringing people into motorsport, into STEM, and all of this. And you just see someone who is really, he has a lot of hope, but you can also see that he is also, not the Lewis Hamilton we're used to, because he is just not getting what he wants out of that car. And I don't think anyone in Ferrari is getting what they want from that car, and that is just my honest opinion in that sense. And then let's talk about a different team, but we already briefly mentioned them, and that's Alpine being no nowhere. They are bottom of the constructors. They have had 3 drivers, 2 of which have scored no points, 1 of which has scored all the points for the team, and that's Pierre Gasly. And they have just they have been running their own races because nobody else needs to race them. They are some people have said that they are Formula 2 cars are driving a Formula 1 race, and sometimes it feels like maybe they're actually on roller skates instead, because it just doesn't feel like obviously financial issues, the turmoil with Renault wanting to be out of the sport, and then them deciding Alpine themselves deciding to no longer be associated with Renault and getting a Mercedes engine next year, but all they can do right now is just hope that it won't be as tragic as it seems, but they still have, I think, no possibility of leaving the 10th spot in the constructors. Hopefully when they get the Mercedes engine they'll be much more competitive, because I don't feel like the scores of all 3 of the drivers, and that's Gasly, Colapinto and Doohan, was very reflective of their abilities. You don't just unless you're bought into the sport, if you actually work hard, you're not just there just to look pretty and just to stand there and do some PR. You're there because of your merit. You're there because you've earned your way in, and now you are just not able to show what you've got because you're driving something that is unrepresentative to what you deserve to have. So Alpine are just nowhere, and I think there's bound to be some episode on that, or at least one little mention of what happened. They had a double podium in Brazil last year. They were 7th in the constructors last year, and now they are 10th and driving their own little race, getting lapped every single time because they are just not a team that can produce a good car in 2025. Maybe they will be able to change that around in 2026. We shall see next season. And now on to number 14, which goes back to my first point, which was McLaren intra-team battles. So obviously with the 2 McLaren drivers swapping positions between being the leader in the points and creating that ability for the team to win the championship, it has brought on this idea of do they still get along? Are there secrets held between the 2 garages? Are there issues going around about fairness? There's a papaya rules bit of it all. Is it fair that they are putting team orders through to let someone through because they had a bad pit stop, or they looked better before? It's really quite it's a weird season. They have gotten a lot of slack for their team orders, or what they call papaya rules, but also the inability of them choosing a favourite, which at this point in the season it is impossible to choose because they are so close in the points. But when they were so far away, it made more sense to favour someone. Now it's just too late, so they might as well not bother picking a favourite, and I don't think they will. But it's it's interesting because everyone says that your number one enemy is your teammate, but in this case, it's literally the case, because you're not just fighting for a position, you are fighting for the top, you are fighting for that trophy at the end of the year. At the award ceremony, you want to be an FIA World Champion, you want to be number 35 of the champions that I have done an episode on, and you want to join that list. You want to change it up a bit, not having the same winner, the same world champion 5 years in a row. You want to change it up, you want to refresh it, and now that there's an option for someone else to be in there, but the 2 potential people who can win this are in the same team, it does create a lot of interesting storylines there. So this is bound to be mentioned because it hasn't always been so great in terms of just the atmosphere around. Sometimes being fair does not make both drivers happy, but they just have to follow team line, team rule, because ultimately it's what the team wants to do rather than what the driver wants to do, because it's the team that hired the driver, not the driver hiring the team. So yes, I suspect this will be quite a big storyline. Number 15, which is no longer applicable as of recent, but I suspect that it's going to get a mention anyway, because obviously with last year Hamilton announcing that he's leaving Mercedes for Ferrari, and then Antonelli being brought in and him having his own documentary himself. The big storyline now that would probably emerge is the pressure put onto Mercedes to renew George's contract and deciding whether they want to keep Antonelli or not. Now we know obviously that they have decided to go with both drivers, but it is an interesting turn of events when we went from so many races just asking, like, oh, when are you going to get your contract renewed? Any news on the contract? Any news on this? Any news on that? Are you going to be driving for Mercedes next year? Are you going to be the number one driver? Do you feel like you deserve this place in a Mercedes seat in a top team? Do you feel like there's too much pressure on you being so young? And that goes to you both drivers. The contract woes up until them actually announcing that they have been signed on for an undisclosed amount of time. Mercedes are known for having very short contracts, just so they make space for other potentially great drivers, potentially better drivers to be put into the team. So it is a storyline that we could see up until the point where they, announce that they have renewed contract with both of their drivers. Now for number 16, I have made my own episode about this, but I suspect that they may do a big episode on the rookies this year, as we've had so many, whether it's their full season in the sport or whether they've been brought in at some point. So obviously we have Behrman, we have Hadjar, we have Antonelli, we have Bortoleto, we have Lawson, we have Doohan, we have Colapinto, and I hope I'm not missing any more drivers. But we have had so many rookies. I suspect that there will be an episode or some big mention of the fact that there are so many new faces on the grid, so many faces that have left the grid for whatever reason that may have been, and it is an interesting storyline to go with, how you have put so much faith into all these new drivers. How sure are you that they are actually going to bring good results for the teams that they represent? And how well do you think that they'll adapt to the car? Well, it also depends on the car rather than just the driver themselves, and how the team gets along and how the team treats them. Are they going to just be shunted by the team because they're just the newbie, or are they going to be a critical member of the team? Are they going to be respected by the team, or are they just going to be treated like a bit of litter on the ground? Who knows? And we have certainly seen a varying amount of storylines coming out of that. So I suspect that just the mention of how many rookies we've had this year would be quite prominent, and also how well they got on. And now on to Sauber again, because for a team that is quite small and has struggled to be at the forefront since its inception, really, the big story, as I previously mentioned, was the fact that Nico Hülkenberg has got his first podium after so many races, after so many years. He finally got himself a place on the podium in Silverstone. He got himself his first ever Formula 1 trophy, and it was made out of Lego, so it was perfect for his daughter to just have a play with. I suspect that Sauber has that trophy, and he may have bought a replica, but it's quite the achievement for someone who has tried so hard for so long, and there were so many moments where he could have gotten his podium, and now the next step is for him to win a race. Who knows what Audi will give him when they come in? Will they be a successful team that can be racing up front, or will they be still a midfield team? Obviously it'll be the first year that they're there, but they are keeping a lot of people on into the Audi project, as well as new faces, to sort of balance out experience over fresh minds and fresh ideas. So I suspect that at least some sort of a mention for Hulkenberg and his first ever podium, and how much it meant not only just for him and his family, but the reaction that he got from the entire world, how everybody liked that he finally got what he deserved for so long, and that you should never give up regardless of how long something takes. If you feel it's something that you deserve and it's it doesn't harm anyone else, why should you not carry on until you get there and beyond? And then in 18th, this may or may not get a mention, but I feel like it should, and that was how many rookies took part in the FP1 session in Mexico, and that's people who aren't actually part of the grid. We had 9 people taking part in the FP1 session where they took control of cars. So many drivers were out of their seats at that time, and they were just watching how the results are coming in, how people are doing in their cars, just so they could understand what to expect from driving when they get back into their cars. We had so many new faces, from Formula 2 drivers to IndyCar drivers to reserve drivers, that we've had an ability to see so many new potential faces for the future, and some that were just there because they are part of the team, but don't really see any time soon getting onto the grid itself, but they just wanted to take that opportunity when it was given to them. And in number 19, my prediction of this very exciting list is the release of the F1 movie, which obviously had its reviews. Some people are saying that it had overdone what Formula 1 is. They had took liberties creatively. Some points I actually, spoiler alert, haven't seen the film yet, even though it's been out for quite a few months now. But of course they are going to embellish some bits, and some things are not embellished, but they have happened many years ago when a lot of the current viewership hasn't seen certain events occur, and then they say like, oh, this would never actually happen in the real sport, but well, it actually did happen, but you might have not been alive when it happened, or you may have not been watching the sport when it did happen, but because it was such a central story to having this crew around for a year and a half, and then that finally finishing in Abu Dhabi, and having so much crossover with that fourth wall of having Crofty and Brundle commentating, and the fact that Hamilton was there as an creative help to authenticise the process of the filming, and authenticizing just the actual racing elements. I think that it's going to get a mention, especially that a lot of the drivers actually featured in the film themselves. They may have not spoken much in the film or at all, but they all took part in it in some way. And now on to number 20, and this is also along the lines of rookies again, and I think that there may be a mention of how the rookies compare to their teammates. So this would be quite varying. So in Racing Bulls, Lawson and Hadjar, they Hadjar seems to be the stronger one, but sometimes Lawson does pull something out the park now that he's much more comfortable in the racing bulls again. And then there's Haas, where Behrman has sort of, although his points may not reflect it as much as it does for Ocon, he has outscored him in terms of where he placed. In the results, even if they weren't point scoring results, and where he qualifies, he has quite dominated over Ocon in a sense, while he's trying to adapt into the Haas car. And then there's also the same going for Bortoleto versus Hulkenberg, although Bortoleto hasn't had a podium yet in F1. His ability to outqualify his veteran teammate has been quite a amazing feat for him, even if I think some people forget that he had back-to-back wins of championships in Formula 2 and Formula 3, so to see success for this guy in Formula 1, even if he is in a car that isn't typically associated with being as good as other teams, I think the fact that he is able to dominate over his teammate is quite a big thing. And then on the other hand, you have Antonelli, who is the only one in a top team, but has also sometimes outscored Russell, but a lot of the time hasn't, with obviously Russell being in 4th in the drivers, whereas there's quite a few spaces between George and Kimi. So George is in 4th, then it's Charles Leclerc in 5th, then it's Lewis Hamilton in 6th, and then it's Antonelli in 7th. So it's there's quite a big points gap, so he's not having as much luck. But to be fair, he had a lot of pressure during the European season, and there was also just, if you're with a driver that has won a lot of races, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but has had a lot of success in Formula 1 ever since joining the team, and he's more familiar with the team itself as well, I feel like that is an advantage to Russell over Antonelli. But because he was signed up again for the team, I feel like he still can show growth and can be at a similar level perhaps next year in the car with the new regulations. But for a rookie, I think he has been quite amazing in that sense. And the story of Doohan just being thrown out of the sport after 6 races and then being put as a reserve for Alpine, but not really getting much airtime, not really being seen much, just sort of being a forgotten individual ever since he's been taken out of the car. So many storylines, and obviously with Gasly being the only person that seems to be dominant in that team, there's not an equal share power in terms of points, but there may be more of a points advantage in terms of finance and security in the seats themselves. And then in the 21st position is the F175 event at the O2. That was a big event that happened in London in February, and that was the first time that they ever did it, maybe the last time they ever did it, because of the reception that certain people had gotten. They may feel that it's probably not worth repeating, even though when I was there it was quite enjoyable and I liked the atmosphere. I did not like the fact that I had to stand there for 4 hours and felt like I needed to be hit with a hammer straight to the knees to be able to walk again, but I still loved my time there. regardless of how claustrophobic it felt as well. But it was an amazing event to be at, and I feel that the booing that specifically Max Verstappen and Christian Horner got, obviously they might put it down to British bias, but it might also be to do with his dominance, and also just the way he is on track with when the mentality he puts himself into when he's in the car versus Max the person, and also Christian Horner and his scandals, and obviously we saw the back of him quite quickly after that. So the that might be the differing situation that tipped over the edge, and they said, right, never again. But as a spectator, I really like the event, and I wouldn't mind if it would be repeated, but maybe in a few years' time, give people a breather, and maybe give a bit more notice. Now, I sort of mentioned this at the very beginning, but Verstappen's climb to the championship, I said about him ebbing and flowing all across in terms of his successes in the races, but his ability to close the gap between him and at that point it was Norris, now it's Piastri, to go from having a over 100 points deficit to closing into having a 30 point to almost 40 point deficit with the championship leader, and him being in third position for the majority of the time. Of course, he did start the entire year in second position, but then dropped down because of the McLaren dominance, so it all sort of interferes itself there, and weaves in and out. But his ability that nobody else has really shown as much of, holding on and still being competitive even from the third position on the grid and being able to close such a big gap, I feel like it's bound to make some sort of a mention, because there's no way that this will not have some sort of semblance to just the whole persona and the whole history of him as a driver in F1 in the last 10 plus years that he's been in sport. And now we're back onto Sauber again, but that's because they're becoming Audi in 2026, which we've known for quite a while now. But Audi coming in, and just the preparations that Sauber is doing before they become Audi, and how they are, what will change, not only just the livery and the sponsorships, but how will this affect their ability to get results? Will the results improve? Will they stay where they are? Will they drop? How much how much change will we see in the personnel? What will be the mentality around it? Would the sponsorships for the team affect the way the team handles itself? Will we see more adverts coming from them for the sponsors? What is coming in terms of where Jonathan Wheatley is seeing the future when the team does become Audi? Where does Binotto come into this? A lot of unknowns that I feel like may get mentioned, just as I think overall, just looking at my predictions, I feel like Sauber might get an episode just highlighting all of these things because of the, as I said, leaps and bounds that the team has been able to make in 2025. Not long to go now, and in 24th position, I've previously mentioned this as well, and that's the Red Bull second seat woes, because now we have Lawson, who's most likely not going to go back into Red Bull, but he still might. And then there's Tsunoda, who might retain the seat but most likely wouldn't, and then what will happen with him. Then there's Hadjar, who has been absolutely outstanding and has won a lot of points for the team and has shown a lot of potential as a teammate for Max, but whether he feels ready, whether he wants to be there. He said that he's frightened of the idea, but he might still take it if it comes to it. And then there's also Arvid Lindblad being put in, so they have 5 drivers to fill 4 spots, and one of the spots is taken already by Max, and all the other 3 spots are unknown. Would they leave Lindblad in a Formula 2 for now? It's all to play for, and I feel like when the series comes out, we would already definitely know by then what the arrangement will be for 2026, who will be where, at least at the beginning of the season, and obviously with an asterisk, because it is all subject to change throughout the year, as we've already seen. But we'll see what they can potentially do with all of these lives being affected, in terms of where they place in where they are placed in the seats or whether they are not. 5 more to go. So number 25, midfield swapperoos, and that is basically any position from 6th to 9th, how they just keep swapping. Williams being up there in 5th for the longest time and being able to retain that, being the top of the midfield teams, and then Haas, Sauber and Aston Martin Racing Bulls just constantly flipping and flopping there, because they have been ebbing and flowing throughout the year, and they have been successful in some ways, and in some ways they've been struggling. We've had a Racing Bulls podium, we've had a Sauber podium, we've had Alonso being in the top 10 quite a few times, and Stroll showing up every now and then. We had Lawson in the points quite often. We have Behrman excelling, especially in the latter part of the season, and Ocon has sometimes been able to put himself at the forefront as well. So those teams have shown a lot of potential every now and then, and just the constructors leaderboard just constantly swapping every time. It's quite hard to keep up with sometimes. Number 26 blends Mercedes and Red Bull together, but also a little bit of mention of Aston Martin, and a little bit of mention of Williams, and that is everything that went down in Spain this year in Barcelona. So we've obviously had Williams struggling, because unfortunately Barcelona is not a track that favours the Williams team and their efforts. We saw Sainz having a lot of issues. I believe that Albon didn't get to finish the race, and then there was also Alonso being able to score his first points in Spain this year. So that's a great story for him now that he's especially ahead of Stroll, which is representative of just the determination and persistence of the man himself. And then the biggest thing really would be the issue that went on with Verstappen and Russell, where Verstappen was asked by his own team to give the place back to Russell, but Russell, according to Max's patience, didn't swap with him in time, and then he almost shunted him off the road, and him then getting a 10-place grid penalty, or a 10-second penalty for what he did. and as a result cost him a lot in terms of points themselves. It shows that Spain was quite a dramatic race, one of the more dramatic ones. Along with Baku, that was dramatic, but that was because of the record-breaking red flags, and Australia being the first race where quite a few rookies were unsuccessful in completing the race, and also the rain being so dramatic, and just how quickly that all turned around. Piastri home race and him spinning out, but still ended up being in the points in ninth. And then not long after taking a lead of the championship for quite a long time. So there was those are sort of the iconic races that I feel like are representative of the year. There are probably some more, but those stand out in my mind as quite dramatic ones in terms of where the tides turn and the waves crash against the rocks. And but I feel like Spain was like the most dramatic in terms of drivers bickering between each other. And as we're talking about Spain, the fact that we are getting a new track, and that will be in Madrid. And we have no idea what is going on with Barcelona. Barcelona is staying as a racetrack for next year, but what would happen after that? Will they keep it? Will we have two Spanish races like we had two Italian races? Who knows what will actually happen to Barcelona? Is the track still suitable? But Madrid, as it's being called, being half racetrack, half street track, sort of like Singapore, where it has a purpose-built racetrack that leads onto the streets. It'll be an interesting one because, as we see a lot in the races at the moment, the number one thing that's being advertised everywhere is the Las Vegas Grand Prix, because that's the latest one that has been added and has been there on the table since 2023 and is going to stay for many years to come. I believe at least 10 to 15 years, something like that they signed the contract for. But what will come out of adding Madrid into it and the future of Barcelona is another thing in itself, and I feel like that might get a mention because right now we're sort of unsure of what will happen. There's one side of the Spanish drivers, aka Carlos Sainz, who is from Madrid, who wants Madrid to be the forefront, and then there's the other side, which is Fernando Alonso, who wants to keep Barcelona in the races, but the drivers don't want to extend to having 25 races, because I think that's the maximum that they could have, and they're already on 24. But then again, we do have 3 American races, so why can't we have 2 Spanish races? We were able to have 2 Italian races, so but also people are wanting old tracks back, whether they are applicable to be used nowadays with the caliber of the cars is another thing in itself. Number 28 is alongside the Madrid. What will happen to Imola, Zandvoort, Belgium, and Barcelona? So this year we saw the last race of Imola, at least for the time being. Zandvoort next year is the final race there for the time being. Belgium being announced as being an in and out race, where in 27 it wouldn't happen. Well, there's certain years where it will happen and certain years where there will be no Belgian Grand Prix, and they will intertwine it with other races instead. Just all these classic tracks, what it means for other tracks. Well, we know that Monaco is staying on until the 2040s. Monza is staying on for a while as well. Silverstone's not going anywhere, and it will be impossible to envisage Formula One not having a British Grand Prix unless they move it to a different track. But I doubt they would move it to like Goodwood or Brands Hatch or Donington Park. Maybe they could try it, but not anytime soon, because Silverstone seems to be the best for the types of racing that we expect right now. But who knows what the future will bring, and that's what people want to know, is the future of these iconic tracks versus the future that we already know for certain tracks that some people might be a bit sick of, such as Monaco. On to the penultimate one, and that's the Rookie of the Year. So we have had so many contenders for which rookie has showed the most potential. So we've had Bortoleto, we've had Hadjar, we've had Antonelli, we've had Behrman, all showing a lot for what they can achieve, with Bortoleto and Hadjar often swapping abilities in terms of ranking on how good they are, without even looking at the points, because the points aren't really representative of the quality of the drivers that we have out there in terms of the rookies specifically. And then out of nowhere, Behrman just showing so much, just sort of awakening this beast where he is thrown into the potential of being the Rookie of the Year, whereas everyone always thought there would be Antonelli because, he's in the top team, he's going to be amazing, but nobody really considered how the pressure will that is put on him, that will affect him and his ability to drive. So it really is more of a competition between Bortoleto, Hadjar and Behrman, with Antonelli close but not in as much contention as the other three. And finally, let's talk about the constructors' battle for second, for third, fourth, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. Well, for 9th, no one really wants to be there. The midfielders, apart from Williams and Alpine, they want to preferably be in 6th position. So, as I mentioned, that was Haas, Racing Bulls, Aston Martin and Sauber, constantly swapping each other out in that regard. And then in the top team battle, it's Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes for second position. So as it stands, they keep swapping. McLaren were already crowned champions, so that's already called for. And Williams is staying where they are in 5th. They're not battling the top teams, and the midfielders have no chance of catching up to them, at least from what it looks like. They are safe where they are. And then Alpine, it's highly unlikely that they will move anywhere up from number 10, so they're probably safe where they are. But all the other teams are in contention, and obviously that will be taken up until Abu Dhabi to see how all the teams score and how much who will get what money. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble on about what I think might be an episode in the 8th season of Drive to Survive. Thank you for joining me here. I will have another episode on Monday where we will talk all about the race rundown for the Brazilian Grand Prix, the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, as I'm being reminded that it's no longer classified as the Brazilian Grand Prix. And we will talk all about that, all the things that happened, the crashes, the disappointments, the surprises. All of that is to come on Monday. Don't forget to check out my lovely colleagues on the Be The Change Media Network. Check out BeTheChangeMediaNetwork.com. Check out our socials. Check out me. On Instagram, I'm san_mar_row and at Formula Amateur. and formulaamateur.com is coming soon, so get ready for that. I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye.